never thought I'd be standing here at 62 years old, confessing something that could destroy my entire family. But the truth is, for the first time in decades, I felt alive again. And now I don't know if I can go back to the woman I was before. My name is Margaret, and I've been married to Robert for 38 years. We live in a comfortable suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina, in a house we bought when our children were still young. Our life has always been predictable, stable, routine. Robert worked as an accountant until his retirement 3 years ago, and I spent my career as a high school English teacher. We raised 3 children who now have their own families, and we were content with our quiet existence. Or at least I thought I was. Everything changed 6 months ago when Daniel moved into the house next door. He's 55, recently divorced, and moved to Charlotte to start fresh after his marriage of 25 years fell apart. From the first day I saw him carrying boxes into his new home, something stirred inside me that I hadn't felt in so long I'd forgotten it existed. If you're connecting with this story, I'd really appreciate if you could click that subscribe button. We're working toward reaching 5,000 subscribers, and your support means everything to this channel. Daniel was different from Robert in every way. Where my husband had grown complacent and distant, Daniel was engaged and curious about life. He had salt and pepper hair that he wore slightly longer than most men his age, and his eyes held a depth that suggested he'd experienced real pain and come out stronger. Within weeks, we'd developed a friendship over the fence between our properties. It started innocently enough with conversations about gardening, about the neighborhood, about nothing and everything. But something was building between us, and I knew it. I could feel it every time our eyes met. Every time our hands accidentally brushed when he handed me a gardening tool, or I offered him fresh tomatoes from my garden. Robert never noticed. He was too absorbed in his golf games, his television shows, his routine that had calcified into something immovable. We hadn't touched each other with any real intimacy in years. Our marriage had become a comfortable arrangement between 2 people who shared a home and a history, but not a life. The first time Daniel invited me inside his house, my heart was racing so fast I thought he might hear it. He wanted to show me the renovations he was planning for his kitchen, he said. I told Robert I was going to help the new neighbor with some design ideas. My husband barely looked up from his newspaper. Inside Daniel's home, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the smell of fresh paint, something shifted. We stood close together looking at cabinet samples, and when he turned to ask my opinion, our faces were inches apart. "Margaret," he whispered, and the way he said my name made me feel like I was 20 years old again. I should have left right then. I should have made an excuse and run back to the safety of my marriage, my predictable life. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed. We talked for hours that afternoon. Really talked in a way I hadn't connected with anyone in years. He told me about his failed marriage, about how his ex-wife had an affair that shattered his trust. He spoke about feeling invisible, about losing himself and trying to be what everyone else needed him to be. And I understood him because I was living the exact same thing. If this story is resonating with you, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button below. Your subscription helps us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers and keeps this community growing. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments and mounting guilt. Daniel and I would meet in his backyard when Robert went to play golf. We'd sit on his patio with coffee, talking about books and dreams and all the things we'd given up on. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't experienced in decades. When he looked at me, he didn't see a 62-year-old grandmother who'd let herself go. He saw Margaret, the woman who used to write poetry in college, who dreamed of traveling to Paris, who once believed life held infinite possibilities. One afternoon, when the late summer heat hung heavy in the air, Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "I know this is complicated," he said, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "But I need you to know that being with you these past months has reminded me what it feels like to be alive." My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to pull my hand away, to tell him this was wrong, that I was married, that we were playing with fire. But instead, I squeezed his hand back and whispered, "You've made me remember who I used to be." That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I crossed a line I'd never imagined crossing. We didn't plan what happened next. It wasn't calculated or premeditated. But when he stood up and pulled me gently to my feet, when he cupped my face in his hands and looked at me with such tenderness and desire, I didn't resist. Our first kiss was soft, tentative, filled with the hesitation of two people who knew they were about to change everything. But then something ignited between us, decades of loneliness and longing pouring out in that single moment. I won't describe what happened in explicit detail, because that's not what this story is about. But I will tell you that for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt desired. I felt beautiful. I felt like a woman instead of just a wife, a mother, a grandmother. Daniel touched me like I mattered, like my body wasn't just something that had aged and changed, but something worthy of appreciation and passion. We spent that afternoon together in a way that awakened parts of myself I thought had died years ago. But guilt is a powerful thing, and it hit me the moment I walked back into my own house. Robert was in his recliner, watching a baseball game, completely unaware that his wife of nearly 4 decades had just betrayed him in the most fundamental way. "Did you have a nice visit with the neighbor?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the television. I mumbled something about design ideas and hurried upstairs, where I stood in the shower and cried until the water ran cold. For anyone following along with this story, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. We're working hard to reach 5,000 subscribers, and clicking that button really helps us continue sharing these real stories. The affair continued for 3 months. Daniel and I would find any excuse to be together. I'd tell Robert I was going to the grocery store and spend an hour at Daniel's house instead. I'd claim I was meeting old teacher friends for lunch and meet Daniel at a quiet cafe 2 towns over. Every moment with him was electric, terrifying, exhilarating. He made me feel things I'd forgotten existed, reminded me that I was still a woman with desires and dreams that extended beyond being Robert's wife. But the guilt was eating me alive. I'd lie awake at night next to my husband, listening to him snore, and feel like the worst person in the world. Robert wasn't a bad man. He'd never cheated, never raised his hand to me, never done anything to deserve this betrayal. He was just absent, emotionally checked out. We'd fallen into a pattern where we existed side by side but not together, and somewhere along the way, I'd accepted that as enough. Until Daniel showed me it didn't have to be. The first real crisis came when my daughter Jessica announced she was coming to visit for Thanksgiving with her husband and 2 kids. My whole family would be staying at our house for 4 days. Jessica had always been intuitive, even as a child, and I knew she'd sensed something was wrong. The morning she arrived, I was standing at my kitchen window watching Daniel work in his yard when I felt her presence behind me. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked. "You seem different." I turned to face her, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just getting older and more reflective, I suppose." But Jessica's eyes narrowed slightly, and I could see her filing away that observation for later examination. Throughout that Thanksgiving weekend, I was torn between playing the perfect grandmother and wife and stealing glances at Daniel's house, wondering what he was doing, wishing I could be with him instead. On the Saturday after Thanksgiving, Jessica confronted me while we were washing dishes together. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." My heart stopped. "Are you having an affair with the neighbor?" The plate I was holding slipped from my hands and shattered in the sink. "What? Why would you ask me that?" Jessica turned to face me fully, her expression a mixture of concern and disappointment. "Because I've been watching you all weekend. The way you look out the window toward his house. The way you jumped when Dad suggested we all go say hello to him yesterday. the way you've been distracted and somewhere else even when you're standing right here. Help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by clicking that red subscribe button. Your support keeps this community alive and these stories coming. I couldn't lie to my daughter. Not directly. So I told her a half-truth, which is sometimes worse than a complete lie. Daniel and I have become close friends, I admitted. He's been through a difficult divorce, and I've been helping him adjust to the neighborhood. Your father has become so distant, Jessica. And sometimes it's nice to have someone to talk to who actually listens. My daughter's face softened slightly, but the concern didn't leave her eyes. Mom, be careful. I know Dad isn't perfect, but this is dangerous territory. People get hurt when lines get crossed. She didn't know how far I'd already crossed those lines. After Jessica left, I tried to end things with Daniel. I really did. I went to his house and told him we needed to stop, that my family was getting suspicious, that the guilt was destroying me. He listened quietly, his face unreadable, and when I finished, he simply said, "Is that what you really want? To go back to being invisible?" Those words cut through me because they were exactly what I'd been afraid to articulate. With Robert, I was invisible, a fixture in the house like the furniture. But with Daniel, I was seen, heard, desired. I don't know what I want, I confessed, tears streaming down my face. Daniel pulled me into his arms, and I let myself be held, feeling the warmth and safety of someone who actually wanted me there. "Then don't decide right now," he murmured into my hair. "But don't give up on yourself just because it's easier." We didn't end things that day. Instead, we became more careful, more secretive. The thrill of our connection was now tinged with a constant undercurrent of fear and shame. Christmas came, and with it, more family gatherings. All 3 of my children were home, along with their families. Robert played the jovial grandfather, and I played the doting grandmother, all while feeling like a fraud. On Christmas Eve, after everyone had gone to bed, I found myself standing outside in the cold, staring at the lights twinkling on Daniel's house. He came out onto his porch, as if he'd sensed me there, and we stood looking at each other across the distance between our properties. He didn't wave or call out. He just stood there, a silent reminder of the choice I was facing. The turning point came in early January. Robert had a minor health scare, some chest pains that sent us to the emergency room in a panic. Sitting in that hospital waiting room, holding my husband's hand while they ran tests, I was flooded with memories of our life together. The young couple who could barely afford rent, but laughed through their struggles. The night he stayed up with me when I was in labor with Jessica. The way he'd held me when my mother died. All the years of ordinary moments that had somehow added up to a lifetime. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Click that subscribe button and help us reach 5,000 subscribers together. Robert was fine, it turned out. Just indigestion and stress. But something had shifted in me during those terrifying hours. I realized that what I had with Daniel was passionate and exciting and made me feel alive. But what I had with Robert was history, family, a foundation built over decades. Could I really throw all of that away? Did I have to choose between the woman I used to be and the woman I'd become? When we got home from the hospital, I went straight to Daniel's house. I needed to tell him that I'd made my decision, that I had to choose my marriage, my family, my life as it had been. But when he opened the door, the words died on my lips. He looked at me with such love and understanding that I almost broke down right there. "You're ending this," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. He'd seen it on my face. "I have to," I whispered. Robert almost died today, and all I could think about was all the years we've shared. I can't just throw that away for something that's only been a few months. Daniel nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "I understand. I knew this was temporary from the beginning. But Margaret, I need you to promise me something." He stepped closer, his hand reaching up to touch my face one last time. Promise me you won't disappear again. Promise me that you'll hold on to the parts of yourself that you've rediscovered. Don't let them bury you again. I promised, though I didn't know if it was a promise I could keep. That night, I lay in bed next to Robert and made a decision to try, really try, to reconnect with my husband. I suggested we take a trip together, just the two of us, maybe California, to see the Pacific Ocean. Robert looked at me like I'd suggested we fly to the moon. "Why would we do that?" he asked. "We have everything we need right here." And in that moment, I realized that Daniel had been right. I had become invisible, and Robert preferred it that way. But I didn't go back to Daniel. I couldn't. Instead, I existed in a strange limbo, neither fully committed to my marriage nor free from it. I'd see Daniel in his yard and feel that pull, that magnetic connection that hadn't diminished just because we weren't acting on it anymore. He'd catch my eye sometimes, and I'd see the question there. "Are you okay? Are you happy?" And I never had a good answer. If you're invested in finding out what I decided to do, please subscribe to the channel. We need your support to reach 5,000 subscribers and keep bringing you these authentic stories. Then, 2 weeks ago, something happened that changed everything again. I was at the grocery store when I ran into an old colleague from my teaching days, Patricia. We went for coffee, and she told me about her recent divorce after 30 years of marriage. "I just woke up one day," she said, "and realized I'd spent 3 decades making myself smaller so my husband could feel bigger. And I decided I deserved more than that, even if it meant starting over at 60. Her words echoed in my mind for days. That weekend, Jessica called with news that shook our family. She and her husband were getting divorced. She was crying on the phone, telling me about how they'd grown apart, how they wanted different things, how sometimes love isn't enough if two people are heading in different directions. I listened to my daughter's pain and saw my own life reflected back at me. Was I staying with Robert out of love or out of fear? Out of commitment or out of comfort? Out of loyalty or out of lack of courage to imagine something different? I started therapy, something I should have done months ago. My therapist asked me a question that I still can't answer. What do you want your life to look like for the next 20 years? I'm 62, potentially with another 2 or 3 decades of life ahead of me. Did I want to spend them in a marriage where I felt invisible? Did I want to spend them carrying the guilt of my affair? Did I want to risk everything for the possibility of real connection, even if it meant being alone or facing my family's judgment? Last week, Robert and I had our first real conversation in years. I didn't tell him about Daniel, but I told him I was unhappy. I told him I felt like we'd stopped being partners and had become just roommates sharing space. He was shocked, genuinely shocked, as if he'd never noticed that I'd been slowly disappearing. "I thought you were happy," he said. "You never said anything was wrong." And he was right. I never had. I'd made myself smaller and quieter for so long that he'd stopped noticing I was there. We're in couples therapy now, trying to see if there's anything left to salvage. Robert is making an effort, I'll give him that. He's actually listening, asking questions, trying to understand how we got here. But I can't help wondering if it's too late. Can you rebuild intimacy and connection after decades of drift? Can you learn to see someone again after years of looking past them? Your subscription really matters to us. Click that button and be part of our journey to 5,000 subscribers. It only takes a second, but it means so much. And Daniel, he's still there, right next door, living his life. We don't talk anymore beyond polite waves across the fence, but sometimes I catch him looking at me, and I know he's wondering the same things I am. Did we make the right choice? Was that brief time together worth all this confusion and pain? Could we have had something real if circumstances had been different? Yesterday, Daniel put his house on the market. He's moving to Denver, where his daughter lives. He didn't tell me himself. I saw the realtor's sign go up in his yard. and when I saw it, I felt a grief so profound I had to sit down. Not because I'm in love with him exactly, but because he represented possibility. He represented the version of myself that I thought I'd lost. And now he's leaving, and I don't know if that part of me will disappear with him. My children still don't know what happened. Jessica suspects something, but she hasn't pushed for details. My marriage is in a strange place, caught between genuine attempts at reconnection and the weight of secrets I'm carrying. I wake up some mornings and think about confessing everything to Robert, clearing the air completely, and seeing what's left. Other mornings I wake up and think about asking Daniel not to move, about taking a chance on something real, even if it means losing everything else. I'm standing at a crossroads, and I honestly don't know which direction to take. Do I fight for my marriage, despite all its flaws and all the ways I felt unseen? Do I come clean about the affair and let the chips fall where they may? Do I ask Daniel to stay, to give us a real chance without the secrecy and shame? Or do I do nothing, let him move away, continue therapy with Robert, and see if we can build something new from the ruins of what we had? Take a second right now and subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and I want you to be part of this community where we share real stories and support each other through difficult choices. The truth is, there's no easy answer. Every choice comes with consequences. If I stay with Robert and we repair our marriage, I'll always wonder what might have been. If I leave him for Daniel, I'll destroy my family and possibly end up with nothing if it doesn't work out. If I confess the affair, Robert might never forgive me, and I'll have blown up my life for nothing. If I do nothing, I'll spend the rest of my days wondering if I was brave enough to reach for what I really wanted. My therapist says that this crisis, as painful as it is, might actually be a gift. It's forcing me to examine what I want, who I am, and what I'm willing to fight for. She says that many people go through their entire lives without ever asking themselves these hard questions, and maybe that's the real tragedy. Maybe the real failure isn't making the wrong choice, but never choosing at all. Last night I wrote 3 letters. One to Robert explaining everything. One to Daniel, telling him how much these past months have meant to me. And one to myself, from the young woman I used to be, reminding me of the dreams I once had. I haven't sent any of them. They're sitting in my desk drawer, waiting for me to be brave enough to do something with them. This morning, I saw Daniel loading boxes into a moving truck. Our eyes met across the distance, and he gave me a sad smile. I wanted to run over there, to tell him to wait, to tell him I'm not ready for him to leave. But my feet stayed rooted to my porch, and I just lifted my hand in a wave. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone go. Sometimes the hardest thing is holding on. So here I am, 62 years old, married for 38 years, standing at a crossroads I never expected to face. I thought my life was written, the story already told, but maybe it's not over yet. Maybe there are still chapters left to write. I just don't know what those chapters will say or who will be in them. Before I go, I need your help with something. Subscribe to this channel and help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. Your support means everything and keeps these real, honest conversations happening. I'm leaving you with the same question I'm asking myself every day. What would you do in my place? Would you choose the comfort and history of a long marriage, even if it's left you feeling invisible? Would you risk everything for the chance at real connection and passion, even at 62? Would you confess everything and let the truth set you free, regardless of the consequences? Or would you do nothing, let Daniel move away, and try to rebuild what you have? I don't have the answer yet. Maybe I never will. But I do know one thing. I'm not invisible anymore. Not to myself. And whatever choice I make, it will be mine. For the first time in decades, I'm choosing my own story. I just wish I knew how it was supposed to end. What would you do? Tell me in the comments. And please, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 5,000 subscribers. Maybe your perspective is exactly what I need to hear.